Welcome to the Pod-Key summary of Mercedes McQueen. Today's catch-up is all about Mercedes McQueen, one of those soap characters who somehow manages to be chaotic, awful, vulnerable, funny, and weirdly lovable all at once. She's been at the center of Hollyoaks for nearly 2 decades, surviving fake deaths, kidnappings, affairs, cover-ups, grief, and now a serious cancer story, while still feeling unmistakably like herself. What makes her last isn't just the shock value. It's that the show built a character who can be the problem and the person you feel for in the same scene. Mercedes first arrived on 19th June 2006, part of Brian Kirkwood's Hollyoaks refresh and the launch of the McQueen family. Jennifer Metcalfe auditioned 8 times to get the role, which already tells you something about how hard she fought for it. And when she shaped the character, she looked to Eva Longoria's Gabrielle Solis from Desperate Housewives, which makes a lot of sense once you think about Mercedes' mix of glamour, nerve, and troublemaking. Mercedes is usually described as savvy and ballsy, and that fits, but it's only half the picture. She's got the sharp tongue, the fiery temper, and the habit of going after exactly what she wants, but she also protects her family and carries a lot of insecurity underneath all that bravado. Metcalfe's read on her is really the key. Mercedes often means it when she says she's going to change. She just can't hold on to that version of herself for long. She blows up happiness because some part of her assumes it'll all somehow be fine in the end, which is not a great life strategy, but it is very true to her. That's also why she never lands as a straightforward villain. Mercedes can rationalize just about anything, and the show uses that to keep her in a strange space where she's causing damage constantly, but you can still see the warped logic that gets her there. Executive producer Emma Smithwick once said, "Mercedes gets away with blue murder and still inspires huge affection," and honestly, that sums up her whole TV magic trick. A lot of Mercedes' biggest stories run through romance, or maybe more accurately, romantic catastrophe. She's married Russ Owen, Malachi Fisher, Paul Browning, and Silver McQueen, and she's also pursued Riley Costello and Joe Roscoe. Again and again, the pattern is betrayal close to home, like getting involved with her sister Jackie's partner Tony Hutchinson or sibling Carmel's husband Calvin Valentine. The character often draws a line between love and lust, but in practice, that line tends to be on fire. One of the most explosive examples was the affair with Carl Costello, because Carl was the father of her fiancée Riley. Mercedes went so far as to fabricate a pregnancy and plan a fake miscarriage to keep the betrayal hidden, which is soap logic at full voltage. Then on Riley's wedding day, she gave herself away just by looking into his eyes and blurting out the truth. That impulsive confession kicked off kidnappings, courtroom drama, and revenge plots, because of course it did. Her fixation on Riley eventually spiraled into stalking his new partner Mitzi, and it got so extreme that Mercedes stabbed herself so Mitzi would take the blame. She framed it as the only way out of watching Mitzi, Riley, and Bobby become a family without her. After that, she kept manipulating sympathy during the investigation and trial, and the writers were clear that this wasn't really about love anymore. It had become about winning, about control, about refusing to accept that she'd lost. The Silas Blissett storyline pushed Mercedes into a different kind of darkness. She was kidnapped by the serial killer on her wedding day and held captive until she gave birth, terrified that both she and her unborn child might die. Afterward, she tried to put the trauma in a box, especially once Silas avoided a normal trial and was sent to a psychiatric institution. What followed was self-destructive behavior and a search for numbness through sex, which the show treated as damage, not just headline-grabbing scandal. That period included Mercedes briefly, working as an escort, and later prostitution became part of the same crisis, with her saying it was the only thing she could be good at. What gives that material more weight is that Lindsay Nolan saw it for what it was, psychological trauma, rather than simple promiscuity. Their friendship was an unlikely one, but an important one, because it let the show look at Mercedes with more care than judgment. Mercedes also got pulled into one of those classic Hollyoaks moral swamps where everyone is guilty of something and nobody is clean. Dr. Paul Browning killed Lindsay to protect her. And then in October 2013, Mercedes, Cindy Cunningham, and Lindsay Butterfield killed Browning and concealed it. She wasn't Lindsay's killer, but her stalking, her lies, and her dependence on Browning kept her right at the center of the fallout. Her pregnancy stories pretty much mirror everything else about Mercedes, with sex, loyalty, confusion, and crisis all tangled together. She terminated a pregnancy after sleeping with Tony. Wasn't sure whether Riley or Carl had fathered her child, and gave birth while being held by Silas. Later, the show even gave her a superfecundation pregnancy involving Warren Fox and Felix Westwood, which is one of those soap twists that sounds invented until you remember, this is Mercedes. Then in 2015 came one of her most grounded and affecting stories when she and Joe Roscoe lost their unborn son Gabriel to stillbirth. That storyline was developed with Count the Kicks and Sands to handle bereavement and fetal movement awareness accurately, and Metcalf's performance was widely praised for showing a much more fragile side of her. Part of Mercedes' legend is that she keeps surviving things that would finish off most soap characters. There was the 2014 apparent stabbing death that turned out to be a fake-out when she reappeared alive in Nice in February 2015, plus Silas, a train crash, and the 2019 Who Shot Mercedes mystery. That shooting had 7 official suspects and ended with the reveal that both Grace Black and James Nightingale were responsible, which is a very Mercedes kind of answer to the question of who wants her dead. And through all of it, she's remained the longest-serving McQueen, despite Metcalf once fearing the axe in 2008, and even announcing a departure in 2014. What feels different now is the Post-Time Jump 2024 bowel cancer storyline, because it shifts her from melodramatic danger into something much more serious and recognizably human. It also stands out because she was one of the few major characters kept after Hollyoaks announced a large cast call in April 2024. Mercedes has picked up years of award nominations for Metcalf, from Best Actress to Best Bitch to Sexiest Female, especially in that 2007 to 2012 stretch, when the character was absolutely embedded in the culture of the show. She was even voted #1 in Askman's 2008 Hollyoaks Babes list and made a top 100 British soap characters legend poll, which says her popularity traveled well beyond any single storyline. The reason she endures is pretty simple. Mercedes can be infuriating, reckless, selfish, and destructive, but she never feels flat. There's always some mix of fear, hunger, pride, shame, and love driving the mess, and that makes people keep watching even when she's making the worst possible decision, which, to be fair, is often. So if you're wondering how one character can carry nearly 20 years of soap chaos and still feel essential, Mercedes McQueen is basically the answer. She survived everything except a quiet life. And honestly, that was never on the cards. This episode was generated by Podkey. Create your own at podkey.fm.